Good afternoon to everybody and welcome to this special pre-Christmas live stream. It is the 21st of December. It is also the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. And yes, it's onwards and upwards, hopefully from here on in. Certainly in terms of winter, we are expecting the things to get a little bit on the colder side. Yet the fact that we are going to begin to see increased daylight, you typically don't see that for the next several weeks. It's usually the back half of January, early February that you really start to begin to see the difference. But today is the shortest day of the year, where the sun is directly over the Tropic of Capricorn, and the sun is essentially the furthest away from us up here in the Northern Hemisphere. So, how is everybody on this Sunday, the 21st of... Let me just see if I'm back on screen here. Yeah, you can see me. I've got the wife's Christmas jumper on because silly old me forgot to pick up a Christmas hat from the mother-in-law's, assuming that she's got one, that is. But I plan to have get into the festive spirit, I suppose. And I tended to forget to pick up the Christmas hat. So let me just go on to the live chat and see what folks are saying on the chat this afternoon. How is everybody? Are you enjoying your weekend so far? It is pretty chaotic out there in the shops. If you're grocery shopping, perhaps you're picking up some last minute gifts, presents for folks as well. It's certainly the time of the year that I kind of hate, to be honest with you. There is a lot of negativity out there as well as positivity with regards to this time of the year. It's a very difficult time for a lot of people, I always find that it tends to hold a very mixed bag of emotions at this time of the year. But so let me just see who he. So we've got Paul James tuning in. Paul never lets us down. Good afternoon to Paul. Hope you're enjoying your weekend, my friend. David Vogan down in Kirkintilloch. Hope you're enjoying your day. Dad, I know he's dosed with the cold. Lindsay and I are going down for Christmas to spend with him. And hopefully he's feeling much, much better come Wednesday evening so he doesn't pass anything on to us. No, in all seriousness, I actually hope that you're feeling better this afternoon. We've also got Richard Gray tuning in. Good afternoon to Richard, to Paul Farwell. We've got the Village Idiot UK tuning in from Dorset. Good afternoon to yourself. We've got A's47. I do apologise if I butcher any names. We will look at the prospects yet again in terms of Christmas, New Year, in terms of snow, cold, what may be on offer. Paul Farwell is saying, good afternoon, Mark. Dank and miserable day in Swindon. Wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Paul, and same to yourself, my friend. Hope you have a wonderful time with your friends, family, loved ones. We've also got Lisa tuning in from I don't know whether Lisa's tuning in from the Black Isle or at home base or whether she's on her travels. But good afternoon to yourself, to Lisa. We've got so Richard Gray saying, afternoon, Mark. Really hoping this dry cold spell happens next week. We've had over 17 inches of rain at the farm on Dartmoor this month already. Just wondering how much snow that would be. Well, that's going to be the golden question. We'll look at that, Richard, shortly with regards to the prospects of snow. There's still a level of uncertainty, and I've really tried my best to kind of play this down to an extent. The cold spell, I'm not wanting to hype it up. I'm not wanting to get too carried away. I've been there in the past and we've been stung. So there is a level of optimism with regards to this coming cold spell. But we'll wait and see. Dubster 1961 tune in, Frog's Legs Matthew tune in, Turbo Stream. Got William and Catherine McKendry tuning in. Good afternoon to yourselves. Hope you're well. And happy solstice to everybody as well, because it's quite an interesting day. I think the sun here, just to the north of Inverness, rises at around just before 9 a.m. I believe we've already experienced our latest sunrises, but the difference between sunrise and sunset is at its shortest on the 21st. The sun sets here in this latitude, which I think is about 57 degrees north, if I'm right in saying, sets around about just after 3:30 p.m, somewhere between 3:32, 3:35, depending on what source. Yeah, Lisa's tuning in from the Black Isle, which is just across the Cromarty Firth from here at Marvogan Weather HQ. Bradley Williams tune in. Good afternoon to yourself. And this is the shortest day of the year. Says William, 57.88 degrees north to be precise. Says Lisa, thank you for helping me out with that, Lisa. And I hope you're doing well and your family is doing well also. Back to this in just a second here. I just wanted to make a quick mention. I noticed Gavin's post within the last 24 hours or so. Very sad news coming of a weather follower, Josh Seymour, or Seymour. I don't know exactly the pronunciation, and I do please apologise for any mispronunciation. But Josh sadly passed away. Who is an avid, Gav's Weather Vids follower and I believe member. Josh tragically was taken from us at the young age of only 24 on the 5th of December, leaving behind 2 young children and his girlfriend Sophie. I've set up this GoFundMe page to help them out at this truly difficult time. This is Lee Stevens' GoFundMe page, and he's raised a fantastic figure of £973 so far, the target being £1,000. So I just wanted to make mention of this, and we're certainly thinking and praying for the Seymour. I really do apologise for that, but we're thinking of the family at this very, very difficult time. And yeah, I just wanted to make a mention. I only happened to notice this back earlier on this morning. So Gavin actually makes mention here on his Twitter page. It is with the most profound sorrow that I have to pay a tribute and say RIP to long-term Gav's Weather Vids community member Josh, who passed away very suddenly on the 5th of December at just 24. Josh followed Gav's Weather Vids for many years and was an active member of our community. He was also an active member of the wider weather community. His number one passion, however, was his photography. Indeed, we featured one of his photos in the calendar of 2026 on Gav's Weather Vids calendar. So fantastic that his photograph's been included in this upcoming year's calendar. Josh will live on forever through his wonderful photography, and Gavin goes on to mention a few other things here. So I just wanted to make a special mention of that, and we're very much thinking of his family at this very difficult time. So back, like I say, it is the winter solstice, and obviously the northern hemisphere is pointing away from the sun at this moment in time. Summer down in the southern hemisphere, so very hot conditions down in places such as Australia, New Zealand, all across the Pacific Islands, as well as South America at this point in time. And we here up in the north are experiencing winter. So this is the temperature anomalies across the northern hemisphere through the 21st of December. Very distinct contrast. North America, draw a line down the plains, bitterly cold east versus a warmer than average west, with the exceptions of the Central Valley, where there's been about 3 weeks of tool fog hanging around, where temperatures at Sacramento International Airport hasn't risen above, I believe it's 46 Fahrenheit or around about 6 or 7 Celsius. Temperature's been stuck at that level for a good 2 to 3 weeks, while out with the fog we've seen temperatures into the 70s, even the 80s and even higher than that when the Tool fog, you've got very cold conditions beneath that, and with it being in the Central Valley, once that fog sets in, you've got a lid of high pressure over the top. It's got nothing to mix the fog out, so it stays cold, grey, drizzly, dreary within the Central Valley underneath that layer of fog. But you can see here clearly very cold. Florida, funny enough, is actually warmer than average, but the Alaska, right the way down into the southeastern tier, southeastern portion of the United States, it's been a very cold December. That being said, we're going to see one of the warmest Christmases for the lower 48, potentially on record. Look at Europe, very warm compared to average across Europe, but there is change afoot. This is the upcoming week of the CFSV2, showing the next 7 days. This takes us to the 28th of December, and it is starts off warmer than average, but we are going to see a flip around. This is week 2. You can see here firmly colder than average. Week 3 still below average across particularly the south of the UK, warmer than average across the north. Remember, CFSV2 tends to be a little bit biased warm, but if we go back to the week 2, this is 20th through the 4th of January, it is firmly colder than average, and I've outlined quite a bit recently the reasons why we're seeing this turnaround taking place. It's all really related to the fact that what's taking place up in the stratosphere, but also the warm-up, the dramatic warm-up that we're seeing on the American side of the Atlantic is changing the pattern then to allow colder into the continent of Europe here. So while North America was cold, we were warm. Now that it's warming up, we turn colder as a consequence of that. So what is folks saying here? Let me just quickly see. We've got 60 concurrent viewers at the moment. Be sure to hit that like button, everybody. It would be greatly appreciated. So Paul's saying 9 Celsius and light rain here in Hampshire. Let me just see what folks are saying. Afternoon, Mark. Really hoping. Right, okay, I've read that out. Sorry about that. Happy to have my son here. A chilly day. So fantastic, Lisa. I hope you're enjoying your time with your son. He, if I'm right in saying, he lives over in Arizona, if memory serves me correctly. But I hope he's enjoying his time. Hope you're enjoying your time together. Dubster 1961 saying, hi Paul, East Suffolk. So let me know where you're tuning in from this afternoon. We've got William McHenry saying, hi Mark, hope you're okay. Have a good Christmas, and your wife happy Christmas and a good new year. All the best. Cheers. And likewise to yourself and your good lady, William. Frogs Legs Matthew saying nearly dark. So it is 47. We have had the darkest December up until yesterday since 1932 in Sweden. 30 minutes of sunlight on the 20th December mark. That is, very, very grey. And I would imagine this has been a very dull December as well, given the amount of southwesterlies. We've just seen bucket loads of rain coming in off the Atlantic. Bradley Williams, 5066, says, is it going to snow soon? We'll look at that, Bradley, in just a second or so. Turbo Stream saying this evenings are lengthening, but the mornings still get darker for a while. Okay, so I wasn't 100% sure about how it works. I probably should have done a little bit more research on that. But I appreciate the Turbo Stream letting me. Everybody's keeping me right, which I need that these days, I think. A lot of kind messages for Josh and his family, which is nice to see. We've got Andy 5786. Looks like the pattern of weather changing, getting colder, which is true. Exact details still remains open to question, but we'll explore the latest model information in a little second here. Yes, he's in Tucson, and happy to be here in the cold. Yes, it's pretty warm down in the southwest as well these days, especially when you've got the cold dropping into the eastern half of the United States. The west tends to always be that bit warmer, and there has been a real lack of snow cover in the mountains of the Intermountain West and the Sierra Nevada. It looks as if they're really struggling in terms of snow, certainly at the moment. Hello to Inverness, Scotland, 4478. Nice to see you. And also to Hebridean tuning in. And we've got Elof, I think, tuning in. Probably, again, butchering some names, which I apologise for. So let's have a look and see then. So like I said, I showed you we'll look at the Canaries. It's been very crummy weather down in the Canaries in recent times. Also up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, another atmospheric river driving significant rain, very strong winds, not only just in the coastal areas of Washington and Oregon, but also further east, which is unusual to see. Such a widespread area of 100+ mile/hour gusts, albeit overexposed areas. But big rigs, semis as they call it in the United States, getting blown over due to big powerful gusts getting blown down off the mountains, which isn't massively unusual when you've got a significant storm system moving over the Rockies and the Intermountain West. Hebridean, good evening to yourself. Hi from the Isle of Lewis, beautiful island of Lewis. I know Harris and Lewis are part of the same piece of land, but that is certainly a part of the world that lives very fondly in Lindsay and I's memory. We got engaged there back a few years ago, and we were there back in the Easter weekend earlier on in 2025 as well. So a fantastic place, and thank you for tuning in, Hebridean. So let's look at the equatorial view. So this is the kind of flat map view of the month of December. Much of Eurasia is largely warmer than average. Much of Africa, as well as Australia, as well as South America, warmer than average. This has been a pretty, away from North America and perhaps the far north of Russia, it's actually been a really quite a mild December. And that was part of the forecast, both in the December outlook as well as the winter forecast, that did call for a warmer and wetter than average December. And Frog's Legs Matthew saying wet in the south of Oxfordshire certainly has been significantly wet. We've got Forest 169 just started to rain here in Braintree, Essex. Just wet, isn't it? So let me see here. Have a look. So that is the global temperature anomaly so far. Let's look at Europe, and what can you say about that? There's no cold to be had in terms of the month so far. And in terms of rainfall, let's have a look at the year to date. And I showed you this in the European Outlook a couple of days ago. This is the year to date temperatures. And if we look at globally, we will look at this in a little bit more detail in next weekend's live. That'll be the last one of 2025. I should be live next weekend, all being well. But this is the year to date globally. And you can see here, very, very little on the surface of the planet that's actually below average, with the exceptions of what southwestern China seems to be colder than average. It also seems to be wetter than average, which is interesting. But you could argue that it's perhaps slightly closer to average for the eastern side of the United States. It looks as if it's pretty much average, which is quite interesting, actually, that. So that is that. Let's have a quick look at the precipitation anomalies, which is rather interesting. So this is the past 10 days. Let's move out to the past. Let's skip out to the past 90 days. So this is essentially covering the majority of autumn as well as the beginning of winter. Very dry in the eastern side of North America, wet in the west, if you notice here. Moving across, let's look at Africa, and you can see here it's a bit of an interesting mixture across the far north of the continent. Looks as if the majority of equatorial and sub-equatorial Africa is drier than average, with some pockets of wetter than average up towards the Gulf of Guinea, just to the north of the Gulf of Guinea, and the western portion of the equatorial continent. Very wet. Notice here, it's very wet in Madagascar and also the south of Africa, which is interesting, actually. Looking at Europe then, remember this is a 90-day anomaly, and interesting, this Very dry anomaly here over the West Highland region here, but very wet, particularly so northwest England, southern Scotland, much of the Republic of Ireland, North Wales. We're seeing blues showing up here, which is considerably wetter than average. Good chunk of Scandinavia is actually wetter than average away from the west and far south. Denmark very dry, France very dry. Much of western Iberia, so western Spain and Portugal, wetter than average. The eastern side of Spain is wetter than average. North and south Italy, wetter than average with a dry central region. We've had well in excess of 1,000 millimetres fallen in the space of the last 4 to 6 weeks down in the south and the far north of Italy, into the Balkan region as well, very wet. Looking at Australia then, very dry over the last 90 days, but it's been wet actually down in New Zealand, which is interesting to see. Let's have a look at South America over the last 90 days. You can see here very dry across the majority of Brazil, a little bit wetter than average, getting to Paraguay, Uruguay. Parts of the Amazon basin, there's a mixture of dry versus wetter than average. So that is that. Shall we have a look and see what the latest models are showing then for the Christmas period? That's what everybody wants to know, really, isn't it? And I get that. I can understand why. So let's have a look at the latest model runs and see what they're showing. We'll look at the bigger picture. And I noticed when I done my video yesterday, looking at a kind of loose forecast for the Christmas to New Year period, I actually forgot to show you the Christmas snow projections off the model. So we'll go straight to that and see what it's indicating here. There are still elements of uncertainty with regards to the exact details. We're still, talking the back half of the upcoming work week, so there is still room for movement, manoeuvring with the modelling. But if we zoom into the UK and look at the snow projection then, if I can find it, it always helps. So it's just taking a wee second here to upload. Got 68 concurrent viewers, so be sure to hit that like button, folks, if you don't mind. It would be greatly appreciated. The views are fantastic, and also the subscriptions are continuing to slowly increase. So I really greatly appreciate everybody's fantastic ongoing support. Now there appears to be an error with this, so I don't know if it's updating or it's the internet. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not playing ball with me. So let's have a look at the GFS model here, and is it going to show what I wanted to show? I don't know if it's just the site itself or not. So there we go. This is the ECMWF. This just seems to be playing up. I don't know if there's a slight internet issue. I'm not 100% sure that it's not wanting to play with me here. It's been pretty cold in the Middle East in recent days. Now there's been record warmth, and both by day and by night in recent times, but we've seen a sharp drop off in temperature. Now we've had a trough dropping out of Turkey down over Syria, Iraq, the Arabian Peninsula into the Persian Gulf region. Been seeing unusually cool days as well as nights, and on top of that we've seen heavy rainfall. Places such as Dubai, Doha, up towards Qatar, Kuwait City. We've also been seeing temperatures down in the single figures. Baghdad comfortably into the mid-single figures here. Even Kuwait City, where, during the summertime, we're talking about 52, 53 Celsius at times. Temperatures down to 8 Celsius at the international airport this morning. These are minimum temperatures, by the way. We've got the close to the Iranian and Iraqi border. We had temperatures down to 7.5. These aren't exceptional for the time of the year, but we did see temperatures that were within 1.5 degrees of the December record down in Qatar, low of 7.9 on Friday morning. But it looks as if Doha recorded down to 13.4 this morning, 8.8 to the south of the Qatari capital. So yeah, pretty chilly. We've seen mountain snow, we've seen the hail on the Arabian desert, and also significant flooding in recent times as well. Let's zoom right out and see what it's showing here in terms of the temperature. So like I said, these are minimum temperatures, And as you would expect at this time of year, temperatures well into the -40s. We've got a couple of -50s showing up here. Well, quite a few -50s actually. I think the coldest so far is around -53 Celsius. But that's pretty normal really for this region of the world here. So you can see here, widely -40s. And you've got maybe 8 or 9 -50s showing up here. Skipping across to the North American continent, we've been seeing some of the coldest temperatures since the 1970s for so early in the season in parts of the Yukon. Another morning of -50 Celsius in the Yukon this morning. We've been seeing some heavy snowfall in this part of the world as well. And then down into the Canadian prairies as well, we're talking about temperatures -30s, -40s in recent times. Really, up until now, it's not been that cold on the European side of the Atlantic, but that is about to change. So let me go back to the weather charts. Yep, it looks as if this is showing up now. So this is the GFS. So we're looking at the snow depth projection of the GFS model here. And this is as we move towards, so nothing up until 18 UTC on Wednesday, Christmas Eve. Then as we move, notice here, snow showing up here in the north of France, just at the very bottom of the graphic here. This is the back half of Christmas Day. Notice here, there's nothing showing up in terms of snow for the UK. Continuing to play through the next weekend and then into the final days of the year. This is Hogmanay heading on to the 1st of January, and it's not showing much in the way of snow. Now, back yesterday, this was showing more in the way of snow, which is interesting. Now, let me go on to the ECMWF, which was, if memory serves me correct, the ECMWF was not as bullish as the GFS. This is the ECMWF model showing up some paltry snow. This is really not a big deal, really. But you can see here a little bit through the central belt, northern England, higher parts of England, Scotland, Wales, picking up on some snow. Let's go back to the current. And you've got a little bit, it's sniffing out a little bit of snow today in parts of higher southern Ireland. Perhaps up towards the Fort Willie area of the West Highlands. Picking up a couple of little echoes here, but nothing really to write home about. This is through Christmas Eve. Christmas Day, not picking up on much in the way of snow. And the reasons why is generally high pressure is in control. And there's not, to start with, a huge amount of cold air to our east. Even though we get an easterly flow, you need to start to see the continent turning colder for that cold to then get ushered across the North Sea. Now, if you've got a cold enough flow over relatively warm waters of the North Sea, you get these convective snow bands that then blow in off the east. We're not really seeing that as such at the minute. Now, continue to play through. This is now heading towards the new year. You can see a little bit of snow showing up here over the continent if you look down to the bottom of the map. And then as we move into New Year's Day, it's picking up on some snow. So snowy New Year's Day showing up by the ECMWF model. Not huge amounts, but nevertheless, it's showing it anyway. So let's now zoom out and have a look at the bigger view to get a better idea where the high is positioning, what type of cold the models are kind of portraying, sniffing out. This is really quite slow, which is a bit annoying, but let me just see if this is going to update. We've got 75 concurrent viewers at the moment. Welcome if you're just tuning in, and if you've been around the whole time, then thanks for sticking by, and I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing here on this channel. But you can see here, this is the snow projection for Saturday, the 3rd of January, and that's not a bad looking snow cover across the continent here. Let's see then what it's showing in terms of cold. So let's look at the 850 temperatures and see what it's showing. So this is the 850s. So this is the 5,000 foot level temperature. And it's showing a lot of cold air around, which is interesting. We've got the area of high pressure generally to the west, extending up into Greenland, and then it's opening the door to this Arctic or polar air to drop in from the east. But let's go back and see what type of air mass we're talking about through the Christmas period. So we've got this little tongue. Look at this here. So that we've got an area of relatively milder on the near continent. So what we're tapping Tuesday upcoming 23rd of December, we're tapping into not really much in the way of cold air. So hence why we're not really going to see much in the way of snow initially. But then as we continue to progress through Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, we do have a little tongue of cold getting drawn westwards underneath that area of high pressure that extends from Scotland into the south of Sweden here. We've got some pretty decent deep cold now starting to show up over western Russia. But the question mark is, can we then drag that underneath the high towards the UK? Now, you notice here we've got a relatively mild air mass over southern Scandinavia. So this kind of mild theme, unfortunately, for folks in Scandinavia is going to continue. But then as we continue to play it through, you notice the high then starts to shift further northwest. And that is going to try and bring down the cold air. But this is now up until Sunday the 20th of December. And you notice that the models are kind of slightly backing away from this. Some of these eye candy models that it was indicating a few days ago here. We've got relatively mild air over the northern UK as of Monday the 29th of December. And this is the problem. The models wobble back and forward. And that was something that I highlighted. That's why I'm not necessarily jumping too quick with one scenario because there's too much uncertainty in terms of the overall evolution. But notice here that as we move towards the Hogmanay period and then into the 1st of January, we're starting to see a direct northerly airflow here. Still got the core of cold over the far east of the continent. So we've got two areas of low pressure, I think. The main high is centered over the North Atlantic, extending up into Greenland. That's driving mild air north, and that in turn is driving cold air south. But they continue to play it through. And yet there's a little bit of a mix of air mass here. Something not massively cold showing up here. And then we'll see something a little bit colder. But this is all the way out to Monday the 5th of January here. So like I said, the level of cold, amount of snow, still remains very difficult to pinpoint. Now that's the ECMWF. Let's have a quick look at the GFS model here. There definitely is a kind of lagging in these models and maps uploading here. Just seeing here, Green Christmas says Frog's Legs, Matthew. Yeah, it is going to be, Matthew, it is going to be a green Christmas. There's not really going to be much in the way of snow. And I kind of said that in yesterday's, the title. Perhaps not so much a white Christmas, but there is opportunity of a major cold spell, in the run-up to the New Year period here. But it's all to play for. We'll wait and see. I'm not putting myself under too much pressure because you make these big, bold calls and then before you know it, you've got egg in your face when it doesn't happen. But if we go back and play it through, these maps are doing my nutting, to be quite honest with you. Let's come away from that for just a second here. Let's say this is temperature records across the planet. This is off coolweather.com. You can see here, you've got more yellow and orangey dots on this chart than you do have blue dots, which represent the yellows are record warm date temperatures, and the blues are obviously record cold. We've got a record low of 19 in central Brazil, south central Brazil. Temperatures down to minus 50 Celsius. This is breaking a monthly record at Faro Airport. This is in, I believe, the Yukon of Canada. So, a monthly record here. Breaking the old record by, from what I can see, a good 5 Celsius, which is interesting here. So the old record being, what is that, minus 45 or minus 43 in brackets, but the temperature dropped to minus 50, which is interesting. And then we've got record mild temperatures, plus 8 Celsius in southwestern Iceland. We've also got a couple of North Sea locations here. Sumbria, 9 Celsius. And the Goldfax platform in Norway, out in the Norwegian Sea, is showing 9 Celsius, so very, very mild for the time of the year. Got a record warm temperature in Nigeria, Yola, high of 37 Celsius, and then up into the northwest of Russia, record high temperature of 0 Celsius. But bear in mind, look at this. This is in northern Russia, so 0 Celsius is pretty warm for that part of the world. So we'll go back to the weather charts and see if it's uploaded. It looks as if it has. So this is Sunday the 21st, which is today. You've got the mild area of high pressure obviously building. We've got this mild transport on the western flank, while we've got cold on the eastern flank coming south and southwest. So there's that little tongue of cold air showing up by the GFS model here, moving around the base of the high. So it's kind of drifting off this main core of cold air. There's mild air then drifting into Scandinavia. Continue to play it through. This is next weekend now. And you can see here again, these models have kind of slightly pulled back on some of the outlooks that it was showing just 24 or so hours ago here. So this is something that you need to consider, these kind of wobbles with the modeling between warm and cold. But yeah, there is definitely cold air getting drawn into Europe here, but there's a mixture going on between warm and cold. Continue to play. This is New Year's Day now, and yep, there is slightly mild air within this wider cold setup here, which is quite interesting. So continue to watch this going on and see what happens. Let's have a look at the GFS ensemble then for the 5-day increments. This is the upcoming 5 days, still slightly milder than average across the majority of mainland UK. Northern Ireland slightly colder than average across Ireland. The 6 to 10 day turnaround showing up here. Notice here that we've got colder than average conditions, and then an 11 to 15 day period. Much of Europe is colder than average. So yeah, I suppose you could say that some of the model output is slightly less cold than what it was showing a few days ago here, and that's why it's important not to jump too quickly. But my opinion is that we're actually probably going to see colder runs coming back in the next few days or so here. So we'll just continue to monitor this going on. So Turbo Stream saying, Craig Boy saying, Merry Christmas, Mark. Merry Christmas to yourself, Craig. Can I order a dry morning for Christmas Day, please? I go on my e-bike into Birmingham City Centre. Some sun would be nice, says Turbo Stream. So yeah, and that's the question as well. If you've got an easterly flow, it can be quite grey within that easterly flow. It's not the cleanest of easterly winds. So yeah, if you wanted a nice clear setup here, you would probably want to have almost a Siberian type air mass over the continent to then drag westwards into the UK and Ireland. But yeah, things are looking a bit marginal. We'll revisit these models in tomorrow's European Outlook. So I want to then go on and show you some of the extremes that have been taking place around the world over the last 7 days. Snow blankets the northern Saudi Arabia region. Riyadh faces heavy flood. So we've been seeing some interesting scenes coming out of the Arabian desert in recent times. This is the UAE Saudi border. So this is from Hassan Sajwani. So this is the UAE Saudi border, and I believe this is hail that fell back a couple of days ago. Check this out. Pretty surreal sight, isn't it? Again, I don't think this is massively unusual, really, for this part of the world. Might be wrong with that. I know that snow in the northern portions of the mountains of Saudi Arabia do and can get snow during the winter season anyway. This is more scenes from the earlier hours as snow blanketed hail in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, this looks like snow rather than hail, in fact. So we've got parts of the Saudi desert that's getting snow while the UK doesn't. It's sod's law, isn't it? I think we've seen that a few years back when we seen Cairo, for example, getting snow. Even Baghdad, only the second time in 100 years getting snow. And how many times do we miss out here in the UK. Moving across the United States then, I wanted to show you this here. This is a pretty dramatic footage out of Cheyenne, Wyoming yesterday. So this is from the 18th of December, a couple of days ago. And check this video out of a truck getting blown over.
On the inside.
I remember with Storm Bram, we seen, I think it was a count of about 13 or 14 lorries getting blown over on the M74. It must have been one sudden gust of wind that blew these lorries over simultaneously, which is pretty crazy and scary, given the fact that I drive the thing myself. This is the scene then. Very, very, significant amounts of rain we've seen recently in Indonesia. This is from central Java. This is from Weather Monitor back yesterday. This is a tweet. Just obviously from a copyright point of view, I've turned off the music here so it doesn't interfere with anything. Let me just see here what else I can show. So more snowy scenes. This is out of Kashmir, India. This afternoon, so 21st, this was uploaded an hour ago from Weather Monitor. Check this out. Pretty cool stuff, literally. This was the scene here, landslides in the UAE due to, so this is a road collapse in Jebel Jais after heavy rainfall and strong winds on Friday. Good afternoon to Simon, saying, hi Mark, always find your channel very informative, better than others on the tube, and tell us rubbish. Well, I certainly try my best to deliver as accurate information as possible. A little tour around the world as well. I don't think there's an awful lot of channels out there that give you this kind of global report, which I think is a little bit more unique, a little bit more niche. I quite like that myself, just to find out really what's going on around the planet. This is again another scene here from Mount Semeru in Indonesia of the flooding, terrible situation unfolding in this region. We've seen it in Sumatra recently with the combination of a monsoon as well as a tropical system. Continue to play it through then here. This is snow again out of the Kashmir region of India. So I believe that's the foothills of the Himalayas, if I'm right in saying. Environmental destruction from illegal mining and logging worsened by floods and landslides across Sumatra, claiming over 1,000 lives. So some of the biggest loss of life from a weather point of view in the year 2025 has actually been down in Indonesia now. All being well, my good lady and I are visiting Bali in May coming up. So we're going to be in this region of the world coming up in May. So it kind of just makes me think, the suffering that people are going through here with the floods, and unfortunately these are a lot of regions in the world that are less off than we are. It has to be said. And it just seems to be that the poor side of society seems to suffer more, it seems anyway. That's just my opinion. But let's move on then. I think this is Iran. Again, the floods in recent times. So a cold low has essentially dropped out of the Turkey region and brought the unusually rainy and cold temperatures, upper teens for highs in places such as Doha, low 20s in Dubai, up into Kuwait, southern portions of Iraq as well. Temperatures in the mid to high teens, which is rather cold, especially given the fact that we're seeing record 30s and even overnight temperatures low to mid 20s. So even the nights a week or so ago in parts of this region in the Middle East was seeing nighttime temperatures a lot warmer than even during the daytime. So that's the scene from Iran. This is from parts of Malaysia. So look at this here. Check this out. Heck of a lot of rain. Now, I think there's an element of MJO enhancing some of this rainfall, but obviously the monsoon changes from southwesterly to northeasterly at this time of the year, and basically areas that tend to be drier during the heart of the summer monsoon then receive their rainfall at this time of the year when the winds turn more out of a northeasterly direction. Craig Boy says, think there's going to be snow on New Year's Day. That is quite possible, actually, Craig. We'll wait and see what happens. Inverness, Scotland, tuning in, hoping for a big dump of snow in the new year. Let's hope, and have a great Christmas, everyone. Thanks, Mark GTG. So thank you very much for your comments. Over in the Canary Islands, or down within the Canary Islands, this is the UAE as well, heavy rainfall. Let's go onto my Twitter page just a second. We'll look at the Canaries in a second with Storm Amelia bringing unusually cold days, nights, and as well as that, some very significant amounts of rain also. So yeah, this is the scene from the Al Karama shopping district in Dubai. This was in the 19th. Check this out. So obviously one of the driest parts of the world that do get rain, and this is basically what the conditions have been over the last few days. This is the scene. Let me just translate this because I can't read Arabic, but floods and torrents in the streets of Qatar after heavy rainfall. So this is the scenes in Qatar, perhaps around the Doha region of Qatar. Some pretty nasty floods. Thunderstorms, quite frequent lightning, gusty winds, cool temperatures as well. Been seeing some record river rises up in the Pacific Northwest. Washington State experienced record-breaking flooding this past week. The USGS stream gauges measured the highest water levels on record in more than 10 rivers, which that's pretty significant actually. So, yep, that's information coming out of Washington State. Terry Goose recently putting out this tweet here. So temperatures dropped to, like I say, 1.5 degrees from the December national record for Qatar back a couple of mornings ago. This is an interesting stat here, by the way. I can't struggle to pronounce this place, but in the Philippines, setting an incredible world record. So listen to this, right? The whole of 2025, the temperature has failed to drop below 24.8 Celsius. And this is 0.6 above the previous world record. So more than 1 century ago, it even dropped below 20 Celsius. Now it's struggling to get below 25 Celsius. So an entire year, the minimum has been 24.8 Celsius, which is pretty bonkers. That's a very impressive stat in terms of persistent levels of warmth. Let me just see here. This was the scene on the Largs Ardrossan line. This was back on the 17th. We've had a lot of wind, rain moving in off the Atlantic. This railway line runs right alongside the Firth of Clyde, where the River Clyde, runs out into the Irish Sea. You can see the waves then flowing onto the railway line. That was from Network Rail. So let me just see here. some impressive stats in terms of heat for 2025. The town of Jeddah, dubbed the Saudi Granny, is ending 2025 with a yearly average of 31.0 Celsius, one of the highest yearly averages on in the planet. Jeddah is one of the fastest warming cities in the world, and last cooling average month was all the way back 6 years ago, the last time they had a cooler than average month, which is pretty stark. There's that tool fog. So there's the anomaly, the cold anomaly showing up in the Central Valley of California due to this. The fog trapped within the Central Valley of California, when you've got a lid of high pressure, that doesn't go anywhere for, as long as 3 weeks on end in fog. So you think we're gloomy. Actually, one of the sunnier parts of the world can be pretty darn gloomy as well if you're stuck within the Central Valley, day after day, night after night. Big snowstorm in recent times in the north of Japan and Hokkaido. So this is Kushiro. Extreme snowfall this afternoon. This is again a tweet back on the 15th of December from Weather Monitor. That's pretty epic snow, isn't it? So there's currently 80 folks watching at this minute in time. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for doing that. But please hit that like button, but also hit the subscribe button as well. Greatly appreciated that ongoing support. 360 millimeters of rain fell back on the 15th of December at the Hunter Pass, somewhere that my good lady and I have both visited back a few years ago. So let me just see here. Let's go into the likes bit, because there might be a couple of tweets there that I've deliberately saved. So I've seen the video of the big rigs getting blown over. This is the scene in Dubai with the heavy rainfall. But Storm Amelia has been quite impressive down in Iberia. So let's look at this here. This is from Antonio Vicoli, I think you pronounce this. Winds in excess of 150 kilometers per hour in Tenerife. Snow on Mount Teide, not really a huge surprise, but more than 700 incidents and heavy rains in the islands. This is the current status of Storm Amelia in the Canaries. This is a satellite imagery over a 24-hour period. So you can see here the north to south track of the areas of thunderstorm activity, heavy rainfall, but also those cold north and northwesterly winds here ushering in unusually cold weather down into the Canary Islands. So people are taking a pre-Christmas break. The weather's really been pretty miserable, actually, it has to be said, in recent times. Here, so that's a pretty impressive visible satellite imagery of Amelia. I mentioned about the big winds. I know I'm bouncing back and forward, sorry about that, but we've seen winds in excess of 144 miles per hour, not kilometers per hour, but miles per hour over Wyoming back a few days ago. So this storm system that originated over the north central portion of the Pacific, then rammed into the Pacific Northwest, southern British Columbia, heavy rainfall, but also strong winds, not just on the coast, but Mount Hood, 138 miles per hour, Pigtail Peak in Washington, 114, and we did see some of these big gusts extend well inland as well, which is somewhat unusual to see. Now, this was the scene here. This was a ferry crossing from the Gulf of Cadiz. I always, again, pronunciation, but this is basically a ferry service that takes usually about an hour from the south of Spain over to Tangiers in Morocco. Look at this here. Also, good afternoon to Andy. Nice to see you. And the Woken Spirit. And I apologise. I see my comment was bypassed. It's not intentional. Sorry about that. I'm actually looking at the comments off my phone. So if I miss a comment, it's not because I'm doing it deliberately or anything. It's unintentional. So sorry about that. Let me just see here. I'll keep playing the video for now. And check out this here. Look at the damage to these cars due to the movement of the ferry. I think there's a few insurance claims with that one, isn't there? Yeah, it appears that the Woken Spirit, the comment may have disappeared. I don't know what the script is with that, so sorry about that. If you have Coolwater Ridge, Washington is adjacent to Mount St. Helens. Okay, so thanks for that. The Village Idiot UK. And I do think the first half of January is going to be colder than average. I think we have a potential for some significant winter weather in the month of January. I definitely think that. But strengthened polar vortex, possibly a movement in the MGO. I think later down the road we might start to turn milder. But again, nothing is simple when it comes to the weather. Good evening to Extreme Lemon 8612. Big cold event signal for Europe for the end of the year mark. Hopefully Europe can see some winter after so much time. Yeah, let's hope anyway. We did see a significant cold spell last January. Temperature at Altnahar dropped to 18.9. I was there that very morning to feel the full effects of minus 19 after a night shift. And yet we did see some maximum temperatures no higher than minus 9, minus 10, some of the coldest temperatures. It was in fact the coldest January nighttime temperature as well as daytime since 2010. So 14 years ago. So I think it's easy to forget. We did have snow. We did have cold last January. I think we're going to get more coming up. Had some snow in Tenerife on high ground, says Matthew. Yep, that is true, my friend. So, yep, that is the damage. We also saw some significant turbulence as well as heavy rainfall. We did see some big turbulence as flights took off from, I think it was the Canaries with Storm Amelia. Heavy rainfall, but once the aircraft took off, there was a video capturing the turbulence as the plane felt the winds on takeoff. So, yep, listen, I am going to call it a day there, I think. I've been speaking long enough. We're approaching 1 hour. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen in today's pre-Christmas live stream. I just want to take this opportunity to say I would like to wish everybody a very pleasant, happy, merry and peaceful Christmas coming up. Now, there obviously will be a European outlook through the course of this week. I'm going to be taking Christmas Day off, but there should hopefully be a video. There will definitely be a video on Christmas Eve, and I hopefully will have a video on Boxing Day, a pre-recorded video that is. I'm going to be down in Kirkintilloch with my wife, spending Christmas with my dad. It's the first Christmas without my mum. She passed away back on in early April. So I want to go down and spend some quality time with my dad during this week. So, but the only day that really there won't be a video is probably on Thursday, on Christmas Day itself. But I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Like I say, I will be back with the European Outlook, say, over the next 3 days or so. But if you happen to not be tuning in for any reason, between now and Christmas. Have a great one. Thank you very much to everybody for watching, for commenting, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday and weekend. And join me at the usual time around 5 o'clock for the European Outlook, where we'll continue to look at the prospects of cold as well as snow and looking at the bigger picture also. Take care. Bye for now.